What? I've never seen people so glad to see me. We have no guest today, but a guy dropped in anyway. By the way, if you have caught Saturday Night Live's recent assaults, you might say, on people like Senator Kennedy or Mr. Sinatra, you have seen this man at his incisive best. Phil Hartman. He has been called the new Dan Aykroyd, among other things, but he thinks of himself as Mr. Potato Head. Now, I don't know why he says a thing like that, so maybe we can get to the bottom of that and a few other things. But I'm dazzled by his work, as everyone, I think, is, with half a mind, which is what I have. Anyway, here he is in action. Funny, I have one too. Nice to see you, man, in your real life and your real face. I don't see you as the class cut-up somehow. You don't have the face for that, and yet every comic supposedly was asked to leave the room. And
actually, I was class clown in my graduating class, Westchester High School in West L.A.
Is class clown something you're elected to?
It was an elected position, yes.
And you got the most votes?
I got the most votes. Dubious honor, but actually I was proud of that.
Well, what's with Potato Head, then?
Well, I think of myself as benefiting from what I call Mr. Potato Head syndrome, and that is that I'm a plain, average looking individual, average size, average genetic background, and so if you put a wig or glasses or a fake nose on me, I can look completely different, like Mr. Potato Head, and that's what I think I bring to the show, which is also what Dan Aykroyd brought to the show.
Yeah, I don't see you as alike, except in the sense that as Lorne Michaels, who praises you so touchingly, I would think, on your part, and with his eye for talent. He calls you unappreciated, which is one of the best compliments, I guess.
Yes, when someone says, "I think you're the most underrated performer on the show," it gives one pause, you know. But who are these people who are underrating me? First of all, I want to have a word with them.
Right. Well, since I tried to keep him from being deported from this country years ago, Lorne Michaels. No, I think somewhere in a file I actually found a letter that I wrote when he applied for citizenship. I assume he got it, didn't he? I mean,
yes, he did.
All that stuff.
In fact, I also am Canadian.
Yeah.
We have that in common.
And I became a citizen.
I became a U.S. citizen in 1990. Just in time for Desert Storm.
What was his name? Schwarzkopf, wasn't it? Isn't that funny? We had a man ready to run for president, and now we hear very little about him anymore. You do him, of course.
No, actually, Chris Farley does General Schwarzkopf.
Yeah, but yours is better, isn't it?
I'm sure it is, but Chris got that job. He plays him as almost like a wrestler. I want Holyfield!
Where did you and Michaels first lay eyes on each other?
Beverly Hills Hotel.
I'm talking about the producer of Saturday Night Live, I assume you know.
Beverly Hills Hotel. Well, as you know, Lorne took a hiatus from the show. He produced the show from 75 in its inception through 80. Then Dick Ebersol and various other producers had it for several years, 5 to be exact. Lorne came back for the 85-86 season, and that was the year that Anthony Michael Hall, Randy Quaid, Dennis Miller, that crowd took over the reins for a while. That
group of distinguished performers.
That's right. Yeah. But they decided to recast after that, and that's when I was brought in. Yeah. And I was recommended by some of Lorne's friends, Lorraine Newman, Chuck Grodin, Penny Marshall, with whom I'd worked.
At the Groundlings? No. What was that? Was that the name of the club
well, actually, Lorraine Newman. Where's the Groundlings term from?
Groundling. No, I know it's a
Shakespearean term. Yes.
Yeah, split the ears of the Groundlings.
That's from Hamlet. Yes. The Groundlings were...
How many knew that? Hands? Probably one or two. Oh, God, the whole right side did.
Boy, it's an academic crowd.
Amazing for a welding school, isn't it?
The Groundlings sat in the pit at the foot of the stage because they couldn't afford seats.
Couldn't afford the good seats.
And so the implication is low brows.
Yeah.
And since...
And was the club owned by...
Well, the Groundlings was a non-profit performing company.
Yeah, okay. You didn't have your own home necessarily, you did?
Well, we had our own theater,
Yeah.
which we built ourselves.
Well, but the theater wasn't called the Groundling.
It was called the Groundling Theater.
It wasn't called the Groundling Theater, please, because I say it wasn't. It was in my notes.
Oh.
Yeah, thank you for getting me out of that. Anyway, so Michael's...
I think Lauren was aware of me the previous season when he had Anthony Michael Hall, Robert Downey, Randy Quaid. At the time, I was trying to save a marriage, and I wasn't about to move to New York. And as it turned out, the marriage couldn't be saved. And so the following year, I was ready to try something completely different.
The silver lining was that if the marriage had been saved, would you not be on SNL, or does life work that way?
Well, I think possibly we would have gone to New York together.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is at the time I met Lauren, he was separated, I was separated. We took a walk around Beverly Hills,
Yeah.
and he said, "Phil, are you willing to wear wigs?" And I said, "I love wearing wigs."
Mm-hmm.
Was,
You assume he meant in a professional capacity.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
And I said, "Look, I'm really, I'd be happy to get out of LA and try something completely different, and I think you'll find me very loyal." And I think that was a buzzword for him, because, as you know, a lot of people used his show as a launching pad to another medium.
Yeah, making it clear that they see it as a stepping stone is not the best public relations with your colleagues. And so, well, when we get back, I'll make a guess about something that happened to you at an early age. But we'll be back with that and other things right after this. Right after it. The good news is that Phil Hartman is staying for still another segment and probably right through to the end of the show. Did you get a Jonathan Winters record as a kid or anything? I'm not aware of your age. Are you lucky enough to remember the great Johnny Winters' first appearances live?
I would say that
Jack Parr?
he was the first great influence on me, because I was very introverted as a child, one of 8 children, and in the middle, which is the child that gets the least attention, I think. And so I was pretty much withdrawn into my own little world. And then when I was 12, my parents bought a Jonathan Winters album, and I felt like I'd seen the light. And I memorized the whole album, and I used to go around to people and say, "Do you know who Jonathan Winters is?" And they go, "No." "Want to hear his album?" And I'd just do it.
It's funny because I never think of him as an album comedian, but as the guy who came on the old Tonight Show with Jack Parr and invented a whole world of comedy that didn't exist before. No predecessors, just boom.
He achieved something that I think is very important in performing, and that is that sense of madness. Total commitment to character, total lack of restraint. No second guessing about what you're doing. If you can achieve that, it's a magnetic, mesmerizing thing to watch. And so he was an early influence
And
on
to
me.
strike gold as constantly as he does.
I
can never think of the name of that show he's on. That series.
Well, I don't think it's on.
No, but
anymore.
it came and then it went, and now there's talk of it's being replayed or something. I'm not sure. What's the name of that?
Well, it was with Randy Quaid.
Huh?
Highway to Heaven.
No. What's the name of the show? Isn't that strange? Maybe this has something to do with it. It had a bad title and it was not the... Johnny Winter playing...
Well, someone mentioned The Honeymooners. That was another show that I really loved.
Yeah.
Gleason's...
I sneaked in once and saw
Oh, really?
taping.
Oh, how I would have
no,
loved to see that.
Electronicam was this weird process they had of The Honeymooners once. And I was the only one in the audience. They added laughter in those days. I was in the presence
Really?
of the great one.
Oh, well, that was so magnificent.
Did you ever meet Gleason?
No.
Yeah. But that's an influence, too.
Yeah, certainly, because his sense of physical comedy I really took to.
You ever seen Jack Oakey in old films and realized that Gleason said, "I just do Jack Oakey" at one point, and you see the similarity? Does Gleason's voice hurt the larynx?
Gleason does have one of those gravelly voices, like, "You're going to the moon, Alice, pow, zoom!"
Yeah.
And I have the ability to do that voice somehow and not hurt myself. As a matter of fact, on Pee-wee's Playhouse, I did a character named Captain Carl.
I always forget about you and Captain Carl because it's so
had that
perfect creation.
that voice, and you know, Put that thing down, Pee-wee, and watch the movie.
Right.
You know, that kind of voice. And, but in fact, some people at Hanna-Barbera saw me in the original Pee Wee Herman show, which was a stage show we did in the summer of 1981. And ever since then, I've been doing pirates and gruff characters like that, because there aren't many people who can do it without immense pain and nodules. And
well, there was an impressionist who used to do a medley of, I think, actors from older time, from most of the people sitting here, Wallace Beery, Robert Newton, and also, of course, Louis Armstrong. And a voice teacher, a doctor, said, if you know anybody who does those, tell them to stop doing them. Those people were born with the right larynx for it.
Yeah.
But to go,
I confess it.
that hurt me just then.
Yeah. And I love it.
Like Louis Armstrong is put a guy out of business. He had
yes, I'm told that it can lead to nodes.
nodes, the dread word for the vocal.
What a wonderful world.
Seen you somewhere. Just as an experiment, did anyone here not realize that he was from the Pee Wee Herman show until he did that voice? They didn't. That's gratifying in a way, isn't it?
It is in a way, because my, well, you know, I quit acting in '84 because I spoke to a head of casting at ABC, vice president, and he said, what do you like to do? And I said, you know what, I love to lose myself into a character. I love for Phil Hartman to disappear, and for me to be lost in a dialect, and so on. And he said, well, we don't hire that. Look at network television. It's Tony Danza being Tony Danza, and Ted Danson being Ted Danson. You've got to find what's funny about Phil Hartman and make that work. So I suggest you go back to acting school and work on that. And I took it to heart, and I decided to quit acting. I had co-written Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and I had a little heat on me, as they say in the industry, as a writer, and I decided to pursue a writing career, because I never really had a strong urge to be famous. I just wanted to make a living. And it was one of the ironies of my life is that it was right after that I got Saturday Night Live, almost the single venue in network television where all my supposed talents are of use, my versatility and my ability to lose myself.
Yeah, I like the way you've said in things I've read, I'm happy as a clam there. It seems like a dream to be able to just do all that stuff.
It's much less a stepping stone in my mind, because I've done films, I've done stage, I've done commercials, I've done other kinds of work, and I know a good job when I have it. I mean, this is the most fun I think I could possibly have.
Have you ever run into the person who told you to forget it? And
he's long gone. That's the silly thing about it.
He wasn't right for the part either.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't right.
Every network has somebody whose job it is to find talent and discourage them from getting and get them out of the business as quickly
But
as
I
possible.
don't begrudge him what he said, because
Probably
in the
well
context of his network, you know, that was true.
And he looks at a potato head and says,
He says, you know, you look like a potato to me, and you're going to have to get a French cut or something.
don't try to be other vegetables. Do you mind if we take a break now, just for fun?
Oh, do we have to?
We'll get into the dirty stuff right after this.
Nothing in the world like playing a dead man.
Yeah.
Or someone made up of dead body parts.
You can really get your teeth into it.
Yeah, I love that.
No, that'd be a vampire. The thing that distinguishes you in that from some less skillful performer, I think, is that wonderful moment where you, before you repeat the thing, you seem to hear it in your head and then get it wrong. It's wonderful. I have to... my hat's off to you as an artiste. What happens when you run into the people whom you do? The people that...
See, now, I couldn't have figured that out. That's where education really pays off.
Well, there's a teacher here. Isn't it a direct object? Teacher doesn't know. Okay. Let's forget all
it
that.
It hasn't happened very often. Actually, I was doing Peter Graves' Discover for a while. My wife ran into him on the street once and said, you know, my husband impersonates you on Saturday Night Live. And he goes, well, I've never seen the show, but I'm sure he's very good. And but I did run into Jack Nicholson once. Dana Carvey and John Lovitz and I were playing golf in Studio City, and as a courtesy, we waved him through to hit to the second green. And when he got there, John Lovitz went over and said, "You know, my friend Phil Hartman dubbed your voice in the movie The Border," which is true. At the time, he wasn't available to loop some of his lines, and they were looking for a Jack Nicholson sound-alike. And at the time, I didn't even know that I could sound like him, but I auditioned. And
you just got a call saying they're looking for a guy?
Yeah. And I was in what they call a looping group at the time, a group that does background noise in movies. And so I went in, and in The Border, there are some lines that are actually my voice. There's one scene where he leaves a clothing store with Harvey Keitel, and he turns to Harvey and goes, "I want to thank you and your wife for all your help." And it's actually me.
If that isn't perfect, I can't tell the difference.
So, well, anyway...
I wonder if he knew in seeing it that it wasn't his voice. Would he necessarily?
I'm not sure if he did, because I told him the story. I introduced myself and told him, and he laughed and said, "No wonder that movie was my only loser."
Oh, well, I'm sure he meant it as a joke.
Oh, I'm sure.
How's his golf game, just for fun?
Well, you know, that was the first time. He professed that was the first time he had ever played golf. And the first shot that he tried to hit to that second green, he sliced over some trees and hit a car that was going down the street. Yeah, and it was...
They're looking for the guy who hit that car.
Well, we wondered what was going to happen, and as it turned out, it was a teenage boy and in an Econo box, and he got out and looked at the car, and he went, "It's not my car." Got up and drove away, and Jack was standing at the fence going, "Is there anything I can... All right, fine." Well, we thought, oh, boy, if this guy loses his temper and runs to the fence and finds himself face-to-face with the Joker, that's really going to be funny.
Or punched him.
Yeah,
it
could have been something significant.
Mr. Nicholson.
But he was learning to play golf for the two Jakes, and now...
Yeah, because he's up to, he now seems to be a fanatic for golf.
He's a fanatic and a good player, I'm told.
Yeah.
He really poured himself into it. And it's like, well, it's that kind of game. It can just hook you like a
Do you hear a difference in voices in people when you see, for example, Nicholson in his very earliest films? Some actors' voices have changed somewhat over the years. There are people who can do the older Jimmy Stewart and the younger.
Well, voices tend to deepen as they get older, and also. There's a certain tenor. For example, I've always found it easy to impersonate people whose voices have the same timbre as mine. And
example, please.
Well, an example is, see, I've always said that in a way, Jack Benny, John Wayne, and Jack Nicholson all have the same voice. It's the same vibration, and it's also the vibration I have, which is and it all has to do with where they pitch it in their instrument. For example, John Wayne...
Hey, can you teach me this?
I certainly can. John Wayne's voice comes down from the chest. "I'm sorry, son, we're going to have to, drop you out of the Flying Tigers. You flunked your depth perception test." And Jack Benny, if you took the same vibration and moved it up into the back of the throat where Jack spoke from here, "You know, Dick, it's wonderful to be here with you." And
Spooky.
And if you push it up into the head, up in the nasopharynx up here, it's kind of where Nicholson talks, a little slow, maybe like he's been smoking some marijuana. Like in Easy Rider. It's not you they're afraid of, it's what you stand for. Freedom.
That was dazzling. I'm going to take this tape home and study it. It hit me once that as a kid I was entranced by war films, and especially for some reason I identified with the Japanese. And when we came home and played guns, as we called it, I always played the Japanese. You can see my Richard Lou coming if you're not careful. But I realized that I could do his voice and that it's somewhere up around where Katharine Hepburn's is and the Kennedys. Can you see that?
Let me see.
Sort of up in there. Don't do that. That's very rude. Is some sort of Hepburn's.
Sure.
Now, I think Kennedy is sort of up in there too, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I must remind you, Captain, that a chain is no stronger than its weakest strength. Is a Richard Rue, right?
That's it.
Hey,
How about that?
hey, how about that? See that? Somebody said when you're on with good people, they inspire you and raise you to their level. You made me do that, and I was never able to do that before. You're a good teacher as well.
It's the power of improvisation, Dick.
Is that what it is? Yeah.
You know,
It's a good thing.
I taught improvisation at the Groundlings
That
for
sounds
a
like
few
contradiction
years.
in terms, doesn't it? To teach improvisation.
Well, actually, good point, but there are certain rules that one has to obey when creating an improvised scene. For example, everything that anybody says is true. Because if someone comes in and shivering and goes, "Oh, it's cold out there," and someone else says, "Boy, the sun is beating down today, isn't it?" Well, that's called denial. So you have to build on whatever anybody else has said, and that carries the scene in a cohesive direction.
Or if two people assume it's in a restaurant and then somebody says, "Go open the porthole," that would be kind of cheating, wouldn't
Exactly.
it? Because it throws it out into the... I read that in that book on the compass, which was so interesting. Gee.
I don't know how we got into that, but I wanted to mention that Julia Sweeney, who is now on our show, was one of my students at the Groundlings. And,
Teacher and student together.
yeah.
Hey, you're really good, Hartman. Come back sometime, will you? I don't
I'd
think
love
we've
to.
exhausted your talent here today. Pleasure to see you.
Thank you, sir.
See you next time.